It all started on the morning of my birthday, the kind of morning that should have felt warm and personal. Instead, it felt wrong. Not in a dramatic, movie scene kind of way, just subtly off. Quiet in a way our house never was. I woke up alone. No creak of the bathroom door. No Lena humming while brushing her teeth. No whisper of happy birthday, old man, which she'd usually say with a grin before shoving a cup of coffee into my hands. Just silence. The bed beside me was cold. I sat up slowly, glancing at the empty pillow next to mine. Not even a dent in it. I tried telling myself she'd probably just gone for an early run or left to grab donuts or something cheesy like that. But there was no note on the nightstand, no text on my phone, nothing. Still half asleep, I wandered into the kitchen, and that's when I saw the envelope. Plain white. My name written in her rushed, all-caps handwriting, David. Inside was a new membership card to Titan Fitness, her gym, and a note written on a sticky. Make a man out of yourself already. Happy birthday, winky face. I just stared at it. Part of me wanted to laugh. Part of me wanted to throw it across the room. But I didn't do either. I just stood there for a moment, holding it like it might suddenly mean something more if I stared hard enough. I hadn't asked for a gym membership. Sure, I'd gained a little weight over the years, we both had, but it wasn't like I was falling apart. And even if I was, this felt like a dig disguised as a gift. I don't know. Maybe some guys would brush it off, call it motivation. But it stung. Just then, I heard a car door shut outside. I stepped toward the front window and pulled the curtain back an inch. There she was, Lena, stepping out of a sleek black BMW I didn't recognize at first. She didn't look around, didn't hesitate. She just adjusted her purse strap, ran her hand through her hair, and walked toward the house like nothing was strange. Except it was. Marcus. It took me a second to place him, but once I did, something in me froze. Her boss. I'd met him twice, once at a company event and once at our daughter Ellie's school fundraiser. He was the type who smiled with just his teeth, not his eyes. Smooth talker. Always on. And now, apparently, he was also Lena's personal Uber driver. He didn't even try to drop her off discreetly, no corner turn, no parking down the block. Just straight into her driveway at 7 in the morning. I watched as she paused at the side mirror of the car, checking her reflection, smoothing her blouse, touching her neck. Her blouse was wrinkled like it had spent the night in a ball on someone's carpet. I stepped back from the window just before she opened the door. She didn't even look surprised to see me standing there. Morning, she said, tossing her keys into the bowl by the door. I kept my voice steady. Where were you? She shrugged casually like it was nothing. Late night brainstorming session. We lost track of time. At the office? I asked. Yeah, she said quickly. Well, we ended up at Marcus's place. His condo's closer to HQ, so we wrapped there. She walked past me into the kitchen, opened the fridge, then shut it like she'd forgotten what she wanted. I nodded slowly, trying to keep my face neutral. But inside I was running hot. Her perfume was different. Not her usual vanilla cedar blend, the one I'd bought her last Christmas because she said it made her feel expensive. This was muskier. Sharper. Like something you'd spray on after hours. And then I saw it, a faint reddish mark just under her collarbone. Not a scratch. Not a mosquito bite. Something more deliberate. What's that on your neck? I asked. She looked confused, then brushed her hand over the spot. What this? She laughed. I must have scratched myself in the car. Or maybe I leaned too hard on a notebook. Don't worry, Sherlock. But she didn't sound amused. She sounded defensive. I was just asking. She turned to face me fully, her expression hard to read. You're not going to start acting all paranoid, are you? It's my job, David. Not a crime scene. I shrugged. Didn't say it was. Just surprised you didn't come home last night. She grabbed a granola bar from the cabinet and shoved it into her purse. You've been saying we need space, right? That we don't talk enough? Well, I was out there talking ideas all night. And now I'm running late. She kissed my cheek, not warmly, not slowly. Just a peck with a purpose. Then she was out the door. No happy birthday. No apology. Not even a we'll talk later. Just the sound of her heels on the driveway and the car speeding off into the distance. I stood in the silence, staring at the gym card still lying on the counter. My stomach turned. Because this wasn't just about one night. It wasn't just about Marcus, or a wrinkle in a shirt, or the smell of unfamiliar perfume. It was the culmination of all the little things I'd been ignoring. The late meetings. The sudden shopping sprees. The way she'd started dressing, like every day might be the first day she runs into someone new. She'd been drifting for months. And I'd let her. I told myself it was work stress, that we were just going through a dry patch. That all couples did. That it would pass. But something in me knew this wasn't passing. This was a breaking. And today, on my birthday of all days, she had finally stopped pretending to care. I picked up the gym card again. Make a man out of yourself already. Maybe she meant it as a joke. Or maybe it was her way of saying I wasn't enough anymore. That I'd let myself get too soft, too predictable. But here's the thing. I didn't feel sad. Not really. I felt focused. Like I just snapped awake after months of sleepwalking. Something had changed in me the moment I saw her get out of that car. And no matter how this unfolded next, I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep pretending. Not anymore. After Lena left that morning, I just stood there, frozen. I didn't even realize how long I'd been holding on to that stupid gym card until my hands started cramping. It wasn't until I heard Ellie's alarm going off upstairs that I finally moved. I went through the motions, made breakfast for the kids, packed lunches, poured juice, but my head wasn't in it. It was somewhere else entirely. Somewhere between the way Lena smiled at Marcus once at a company barbecue and the mark on her neck that morning. Somewhere between denial and the gut punch of truth. It didn't happen all at once, the unraveling. It was slow, subtle. But now that the thread had been pulled, I could see how far back it started. I remember when Lena used to look forward to weekends, Saturday mornings at the park, family movie nights with popcorn and blankets. And then, slowly, she started opting out. First, it was, I have a client dinner. Then it became, there's a leadership summit I can't miss. Eventually, it was just, don't wait up. I didn't push. I told myself she was working hard, providing, climbing. That's what she said she wanted when we first met. She wanted to build something for herself. I respected that. I still do. But back then, she used to build with me. She used to share the blueprints. It wasn't until about 6 months ago that I realized she'd stopped talking about the future entirely. No more, let's try for Europe next year, or, we should finally fix the patio. It was all short-term, surface level. She lived in the next day. I lived in a home she was slowly moving out of, piece by piece. One time I asked her if she wanted to go with us to Ben's baseball game, his first game since he made the team. She blinked like I'd asked her to fly to Mars. I can't. I've got that quarterly pitch with Marcus's team, she said, barely looking up from her phone. It's just an hour, I said. You promised him. She sighed, already annoyed. He'll live. You're always there anyway. That stuck with me. You're always there anyway. Like that was a problem. Like my consistency was somehow a weakness. And Ellie? She stopped asking for her mom to come to school functions altogether. After enough missed recitals and unreturned RSVP emails, she just gave up. Kids do that. They stop hoping to be seen, and that breaks something in them they don't know how to name. Even on birthdays, like last fall when Ellie turned 9, Lena was a no-show. She texted during the cake, claiming she was stuck in traffic. She wasn't. Her Instagram showed her at a rooftop bar with the crew, sipping cocktails under string lights while Ellie made a wish over melting candles. I didn't show the kids that. I didn't want them to hurt the way I was hurting. But I felt it. Every time Lena smiled at her phone during dinner and then flipped it over when I looked too long, I felt it. Every time she came home past midnight and smelled like cologne I didn't recognize, I felt it. I just didn't want to believe what it meant. One night, a couple months back, I asked her, "Are you happy?" She didn't answer right away. She just stared out the window for a moment, then said, "Are you?" That told me more than a yes or no ever could. She'd started dressing differently too. I noticed it gradually, how her wardrobe shifted from comfy workwear to high heels and designer bags. Her look became sharper, bolder. Not that I minded, Lena's always been beautiful, but it was like watching someone turn into a version of themselves they used to only be on weekends. She was dressing for someone. I just didn't think it was me. And then there were the arguments, except they weren't really arguments. More like one-sided interrogations. She'd snap at me for forgetting to buy oat milk, then go completely silent when I'd ask if she was upset. She'd accuse me of being checked out, then spend 3 hours scrolling on her phone, giggling at things I never saw. "You're just comfortable," she told me once. "Too comfortable." Life isn't supposed to be on autopilot, David. I didn't know how to respond to that. I thought comfort was what we were building toward. I thought the quiet nights, the stability, the rhythm of our lives, that was the goal. But I guess she wanted noise. And maybe Marcus gave her that. I remember the first time I suspected she wasn't just working late. It was a Thursday. I made pasta for dinner, her favorite. Lit a couple candles. Tried to do something small, something nice. She walked in around 10 p.m., heels in hand, hair slightly messy. Sorry, she said, pulling off her blazer. Marcus's presentation went long. Was it good? I asked. She didn't even look at me. What? The presentation, I said. Was it worth the 3 hours? She frowned. I don't know, David. It was work. Can we not do this right now? I nodded. She went upstairs without touching her food. The next day, she posted a photo of herself on a rooftop bar, same outfit, same earrings, tagged at a place across town. No Marcus in the photo. Just her, smiling with a glass of wine, captioned, "Big energy. Big wins." I didn't say anything. I didn't know how. What would I even accuse her of? Looking good? Celebrating? Working too hard? But that was the thing. There was no us in her life anymore. Not online. Not at work. Not in her eyes when we spoke. She used to be proud of us, used to post family pics, candid snaps of me and the kids, even dumb reels of me trying to fix the sprinkler system. Now her whole account was filtered champagne and corporate grind set quotes. She looked like someone who didn't want to be recognized by who she used to be. And I let it happen. I thought giving her space would help. That if I didn't suffocate her with questions or guilt, she'd eventually come back. But space became distance. Distance became absence. And absence? That became a stranger at the breakfast table. I used to wake up hoping she'd roll over and nuzzle into my neck like she used to. Now I woke up checking if she even came home. And yesterday was the last straw. When she walked into our house, dropped her keys without a word, and lied to my face without a blink, something in me cracked open. It wasn't rage. Not even heartbreak. It was clarity. The kind that only shows up when you stop making excuses for someone who's already left the relationship, even if their clothes are still in the closet. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't jealous. I wasn't insecure. I was right. And now I couldn't unsee it. Couldn't go back to pretending that everything was fine. Because it wasn't. It hadn't been for a long time. It's a strange thing, confirming something you already know in your gut. You think it'll hurt more. Or maybe you think it'll give you closure. The truth is, it just changes the shape of the pain. Makes it colder. Sharper. Easier to hold, but harder to forget. I didn't want to be that guy. The one who snoops, who hires people to dig through someone else's life. But what was I supposed to do? Keep choking on doubt every time Lena smiled at her phone? So I made a decision. Quiet. Calculated. I didn't tell anyone. Not my brother, not my closest friend Tom, not even my therapist, whom I had started seeing once the emotional weight of maybe she's cheating began to show up in migraines and chest pain. I called an agency out of state, referred to me by a former coworker who had gone through something similar. No names, just the essentials. The guy I got paired with was a pro. His name was Rick. Calm, dry humor, sounded like he'd seen the end of 100 marriages and didn't lose sleep over any of them. He asked me for details, schedules, addresses, her habits, car make and model. I gave him everything. It felt strange at first, like I was selling her out. But then I remembered, she already had. I'll be in touch within a few days, he said. It took 2. On the morning of the 3rd day, I got a text with a Dropbox link and a simple message. Thought you'd want this early. Call me if you need more. I waited until the kids were at school. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, the same table where Lena and I used to eat pancakes and talk about our dream house in Vermont. My hands were sweating. My heart was calm. Too calm, like it had given up on feeling anything. I clicked the link. There were over 40 files, photos, video clips, even a PDF timeline. He was thorough. I opened the first photo. There she was. Lena. Wearing the same blazer she had left the house in last Friday. Walking into the lobby of the Lambert Inn, 25 miles from home. Not a chain. Not a place for corporate workshops. A boutique spot known for privacy, high thread counts, and room service that didn't ask questions. Right behind her, Marcus. His hand wasn't on her back. It was on her waist. Low. Familiar. In the next photo, she was laughing. Leaning into him. The kind of laugh I hadn't seen in a long time. It wasn't a work laugh. It was int asterisk mate. Safe. Like she was with someone she chose to be with. The timestamp was 10:42 p.m. They didn't exit the building again until 6:11 the next morning. Another clip showed her car parked in the back. Next to his. He even walked her to it. Kissed her cheek. and gave her a small wave as she pulled out. I didn't react. No yelling. No throwing the laptop. I just sat there, hands folded, watching the confirmation of everything I had feared. The PDF listed locations, times, receipts matched to her personal bank card. Dinners, always high-end spots just out of town. A hair salon she never mentioned. A jewelry store she hadn't visited in years. One charge stood out. A weekend retreat in Asheville, supposedly a leadership development course. Turns out Marcus signed up for the same one. They shared a room. The hardest part wasn't the hotel. It wasn't the kiss. It was the sheer planning, the logistics, the lies told to cover it all. She hadn't stumbled into this. She'd built it, secret by secret, excuse by excuse. And I had believed her. That was what crushed me most. Not her betrayal, but my own complicity in letting it fester. All the moments I'd looked away, given her the benefit of the doubt, tried to be understanding. I wasn't a fool. I was just too proud to admit I'd been lied to. After I finished going through the folder, I closed the laptop and stared at the wall. The kids would be home in an hour. I needed to be present. I needed to be a father before anything else. But part of me wanted to drive straight to her office and confront her in front of everyone. Rick called later that night. "You okay?" he asked. I almost laughed. "No," I said. "But I'm clear." "That's something," he replied. "Some guys fall apart. Some get mean. You sound like you're already thinking 5 steps ahead." I was, because here's what most people don't understand. Betrayal doesn't make you want to destroy the other person. Not right away. It makes you want to reclaim yourself, your dignity, your voice. And that's exactly what I planned to do. That night, Lena came home late. Again. She kicked off her heels at the door and poured herself a glass of wine. I watched her from the couch, my laptop resting on my knees. She didn't notice. "I'm thinking of taking Ellie to the aquarium this weekend," I said casually. She didn't look up. "Sounds nice. I might have a work thing Sunday." I nodded. "With Marcus?" She hesitated for half a second, long enough for me to see it. Then she said, "No, the whole team." "Cool." We didn't speak the rest of the evening. She fell asleep on the couch. I took a **T of her phone when a text popped up from a contact saved as M. "Miss you already." She hadn't even bothered to change his name. The next morning, I dropped the kids off, then drove to a quiet parking lot across from my lawyer's office. I didn't go in. Not yet. I just sat in the car and made a list. Not of revenge. Not of ways to ruin her. But of the things I still had, my kids, my health, my ideas, those patents sitting in the drawer, my ability to rebuild. Then I added one more line. A truth I can't unknow. I was done second-guessing. Done doubting. Done begging for breadcrumbs of affection from someone already feeding someone else a full-course meal. There would be no dramatic confrontation. No screaming match. No throwing her things out onto the lawn. That's not who I am. But this was war. Quiet. Strategic. Legal. And for the first time in months, I wasn't scared. I was ready. Once I made peace with the truth, something in me switched off, and something else colder switched on. Not hate, not even vengeance, just calculation, clarity. People always imagine heartbreak as a storm of screaming and slamming doors. But for me, it was quiet, controlled, like flipping a breaker. I stopped trying to save the marriage. I stopped waiting for apologies. I stopped imagining conversations where she would look me in the eye and finally admit what I already knew. Instead, I started planning. I wasn't going to burn the house down. I was going to build a better one. And I'd do it from the ground up, without her. My first move? I dusted off my patents. For years, I'd been sitting on 3 software frameworks, efficiency algorithms I'd written back when I worked in R&D. I turned down 2 buyout offers in the past. Lena had convinced me to hold off. Said we needed stability more than risk. Said it was too early to cash in. Maybe she was right at the time. But now the timing was perfect. I reached out to an old contact in Colorado, a VP at a mid-sized firm that had tried to acquire my IP 2 years ago. He remembered me right away. Said my name had never stopped coming up in meetings. Long story short, they made an offer I couldn't refuse. For $0.2 million. Just like that, the game changed. But I didn't deposit the money into any shared accounts. I created a new LLC under a separate name. Opened a fund. Spread the money across various investments. I didn't even touch our joint bank. Not 1 cent. Every step I took was legal. Strategic. Documented. Because I knew Lena. Once she realized I was no longer playing house, she'd go from absent partner to ruthless litigant. She'd *P***nize every shred of leverage she had or thought she had. So I beat her to it. I started keeping records. Not just of the affair or Rick's photos were already timestamped and stored securely, but of her absences. The days she missed family dinners. The mornings she skipped school drop-offs. The soccer games, the art shows, the forgotten parent-teacher conferences. I spoke to Ellie's teacher. She'd noticed the change. Ellie had been quieter, more distracted, asking questions like, "Is my mom mad at me?" That broke something in me deeper than Lena ever could. Ben had stopped asking where she was altogether. It wasn't just the cheating, it was the abdication of her role as a mother. I started a digital journal. Every missed moment. Every lie. *TS of texts. Archived Instagram posts. All of it saved, organized by date and relevance. My lawyer told me it was over *LL. I told him I wasn't taking chances. He agreed. Meanwhile, at home, I played the long game. Lena didn't suspect a thing. If anything, she grew more distant, more careless. I think she assumed I'd finally accepted things. That I'd surrendered. That maybe I'd just shut down emotionally and decided to tolerate her behavior in exchange for some imagined peace. She was wrong. I smiled when she came home. Kissed her on the cheek when she left. Didn't question her when she said she was working late. But I noticed everything. She changed her passwords. Bought new lingerie and hid the receipts. Deleted text threads. But she couldn't hide her energy, the way she was always in a rush, always somewhere else in her head. And the kids? They felt it. One night, Ellie asked me, "Why doesn't Mom eat dinner with us anymore?" I said something vague about her being busy, but I could see in her eyes that she didn't buy it. Kids know. They always know. Ben had started clinging to me more, sitting beside me on the couch, following me around the house. I didn't realize how much I'd become their anchor until they stopped asking about their mom and started asking when I'd be home instead. That's when I knew I wasn't doing this just for me anymore. I wasn't preparing for a fight. I was preparing for protection. Of them. Of their future. One night while Lena was out late client dinner, as always I called Rick and asked if he could dig into Marcus's company. Not dirt, just logistics. Ownership. Corporate structure. Public shares. He got back to me 3 days later. Apparently Marcus wasn't just her boss, he was part owner of the boutique consulting firm they worked for. Privately held, mostly quiet on paper, but with a board of 6. I started buying. Slowly. Anonymously. Through the fund I'd built. It wasn't about control. Not yet. But I wanted a seat at the table. Let's just say I was planting seeds. It was poetic in a way. While she was sneaking off with Marcus, I was sneaking into Marcus's boardroom. I wasn't even angry anymore. Not really. The heartbreak had cooled into something sharper, focus. I was done being passive. Done being the guy left behind. Because here's the thing, I had spent years making sacrifices. For Lena. For the kids. For a life we had dreamed up together. I had put my own ambitions on hold to be the kind of man she said she wanted, a steady husband, an involved father, a reliable provider. But she didn't want steady. She wanted shiny. She wanted spontaneous. She wanted Marcus. Fine. She could have him. But she wouldn't take me down in the process. And she sure as hell wasn't taking the kids. The moment Lena got served, the mask came off. She came home early from work, red-faced, storming into the kitchen with the divorce papers in her hand like she'd just been handed a bomb. Her voice was clipped, high-pitched. I could tell from the sound of her heels on the hardwood that she wanted a confrontation. "This is how you tell me?" she snapped, waving the envelope. "A process server at my office, David?" I didn't flinch. I was standing by the sink, drying dishes from lunch with Ben and Ellie. Calm. Controlled. "You always said we should be more professional," I said without turning. "I figured I'd take your advice." She slammed the papers on the counter. "You blindsided me." I finally looked at her. Did I? There was a beat. Just silence. Then her jaw clenched. "You don't get to play victim. You think I haven't seen the way you've been acting? The way you've checked out? Don't you dare turn this around like I'm the villain." I laughed, not out of joy, but because it was so absurd. You were the one sneaking out of hotel lobbies at sunrise. I just finally stopped pretending not to notice. Her eyes widened, just for a second. That tiny flicker of fear. You had me followed? She said, voice lower now. Shaken. I didn't need to, I replied. You left a trail so wide. Ellie could have traced it. She didn't respond to that. Just looked away. But I could feel it, the shift. The moment she realized this wasn't going to be like the other arguments, the ones where I backed down to keep the peace. I wasn't that guy anymore. And she hated that. That weekend, her tone changed. She went from anger to bargaining. Claimed she didn't want things to get messy. Said we should think of the kids. That maybe we could slow down, talk things through. I didn't say no. I just let her talk. But behind the scenes, my lawyer was already 3 steps ahead. We filed for full custody, primary physical, joint legal, with supervised visitation until further review. Lena was livid. Said I was trying to erase her as a mother. That I had no right. But I had more than a right. I had receipts. I showed my attorney everything I'd compiled. Dates Lena was absent, social media timestamps of her drinking during work meetings, teacher statements about missed parent conferences, doctor's notes she skipped, **TS of texts from Ellie asking why her mom didn't come home. We submitted it all. Even Rick's report made its way in, clean and without embellishment. The photos, the transaction logs, the overlapping alibis. My lawyer called it overwhelming documentation. The judge called it concerning patterns of absence. Meanwhile, Marcus's company caught wind of the affair. Turns out, Lena and Marcus weren't as discreet as they thought. A junior associate had spotted them on a company retreat. Same room key, dinner alone, kisses on the balcony. The associate didn't report it at the time, but once whispers started spreading, the board had to act. Internal investigation, temporary suspension, a not-so-subtle request that Marcus take personal leave. Lena didn't say a word about it to me, but I saw the tension in her shoulders tighten every week. She came home later, cried in the shower, slammed doors more often. The stress was beginning to crack the image she tried so hard to keep polished. But I wasn't doing this for revenge. Not once. This wasn't about hurting her, it was about protecting my children. Giving them stability, safety, a home that didn't shift with every one of their mother's impulsive whims. I kept routines solid. I made breakfast every day, drove them to school, helped Ellie with her science fair project, and coached Ben's little league team when their usual coach dropped out. The kids began to respond. Slowly at first, like they weren't sure if they were allowed to trust the peace, but then more confidently. Ellie smiled more. Ben started drawing again. There was life in the house. And Lena noticed. She began showing up unannounced, randomly popping in to see the kids, staying just long enough to be visible. She'd bring cookies from the store, compliment Ellie's drawings, high-five Ben on his homework. Felt staged, and the kids knew it. One evening, Ellie leaned over during dinner and whispered, "Why does Mom always show up when there's people around?" I didn't answer, just kissed the top of her head and changed the subject. I wasn't about to *P***nize their mother against them. They were already smart enough to sense the difference between presence and performance. As the court date approached, Lena's strategy changed again. She claimed emotional distress, said I was manipulating the kids, that I was trying to paint her as unstable. My lawyer was ready. We had logs, evidence, witnesses. Even Ellie's teacher submitted a letter, stating how Ellie's mood and performance improved the more consistent her time with me became. The judge requested a family psychologist to interview both children. I'll never forget what Ellie told me afterward. I told her I want to live here, with you, because here you actually see me. That wrecked me, not because it helped my case, but because she had to say it out loud. A child should never have to explain why she wants to stay with the parent who makes her feel safe. When the hearings began, Lena walked in wearing a beige coat and no makeup. It felt like the first real moment she had allowed herself to look vulnerable. I didn't feel triumph. I felt tired. She took the stand. Her voice shook. She admitted to neglecting the balance between her work and family. She didn't confess to the affair, but she didn't deny the photos either. Her lawyer pushed for joint custody. Mine didn't budge. And then something unexpected happened. She didn't either. At the end of the second hearing, Lena turned to her attorney and whispered something. He nodded. Then she looked at the judge and said, "I agree to primary custody going to their father. I only ask for visitation. I don't want them to resent me more than they already might." It was quiet. Final. She didn't look at me as she said it. I nodded once. That was enough. When we walked out of the courtroom, Ellie grabbed my hand tightly. Ben ran ahead, humming under his breath. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was treading water. I felt grounded. The truth had come out. The damage had been acknowledged. And now finally we could start to rebuild not just a household but something sturdier than what Lena and I ever had. Peace. 2 months passed. Lena moved into a condo across town. The supervised visits started awkward at first, mostly quiet. She tried to smile for the kids, but they were distant. Not out of spite, just cautious. And honestly, I didn't blame them. Meanwhile, the house felt different. Lighter. No more tension humming in the background. Ellie started singing again, mostly while brushing her teeth. Ben stopped sleeping with the hallway light on. One night, Ellie said, "I like it when we're just us. It feels calm." That hit me harder than she knew. I reinvested some of the patent money into our community. Funded a science lab at the school, sponsored a local robotics team. Watching Ben light up during his first science fair reminded me why I'd fought so hard for them. For this. I even started taking better care of myself. Not because of Lena's gym card dig, but because I owed it to myself. I wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. I was just trying to be whole. The kids were healing, and so was I, day by day. Step by step. A year passed. Marcus left the country, some startup job overseas. Lena took a marketing position at a smaller agency. Quieter hours, fewer perks. But she showed up birthdays, parent nights, the occasional Sunday lunch. I didn't forgive her. But I let go. There was nothing left to fight over. Just time to rebuild what mattered. One evening, the kids and I were on the porch eating pizza. No TV, no phones. Just the sound of cicadas and laughter. Ellie leaned her head on my shoulder. Ben was talking about Jupiter's moons like they were old friends. And I realized I was home. Not the house. Not the bricks. Here. Where there was truth. Where there was stillness. Where we were finally real.